Hi, I'm Kelly, and this is Jen, and we're both speech-language pathologists at Therapy Playground. And today we'll be talking about transitioning from the PLS-4 to the PLS-5 in your pediatric therapy practice. There are some changes in the PLS-5 that we should all be aware of. Jen, what are some basic administration guidelines that for the PLS-5?
Well, Kelly, I read the manual in preparation for this, and it's called the Administration and Scoring Manual, and it has all of your administration information, plus a lot of extra info that is really good to read it. I suggest reading it cover to cover before you start testing. One of the big things that I found in the PLS-5 manual is that they talk about not allowing the child to play with the toys, this test stimuli that you have, to keep everything out of reach, possibly in a box, a bag, somewhere else where the child cannot get to it. And you want to make sure that the child is not disturbing standardization by playing with the toys and getting some added information from them. You want to group items administered by the test stimuli. So if you are in the test book, you want to stay in the test book and give everything you can. If you're with the blocks, you want to stay with the blocks and give all the blocks activities that you can. And always make sure that you start off with something that the child is going to be successful at. The PLS-5 has specific points of entry that you should begin testing for certain ages. So it's good to look at that and know where you're supposed to start testing.
Tell us about the record form and how to score the test items.
Well, what I found most interesting about the PLS-5 is that they have a record form that doesn't give you all of the information that you need to be able to administer and score. I think as SLPs, we're used to that protocol being in front of us and us being able to utilize that without looking in the manual. And so for birth to 2 years, 11 months, there's actually 3 different ways that a child can receive credit for an item. The first one is that you actually elicited it. So you gave the test item as written in the administration manual and on the protocol, and you elicited that skill. You can also observe it. Say they're playing with their mom, or they're in the corner playing with toys while you're doing the interview with other toys other than the ones that you have to administer test items, and you observe the skill. You can also score it at that point. They also have caregiver report, and caregiver report is not you asking the parent, hey, can they do this? The PLS protocol does not have this information on it, but the administration book actually goes item by item for birth to 2 years, 11 months with questions that you can ask the parent if you'd like to score it by parent caregiver report. And I thought that was interesting. If a child self-corrects their response, so say they are able to do it during elicitation when you administer the item, but then later, for example, I think a good example is plurals. Say they're able to say the plurals that are contained in the picture book, but then later you watch them playing and they never use plurals. That child has actually self-corrected themselves into a no credit response, because it appears that you were able to elicit it through prompting, but you weren't able to observe it in naturalistic play. So I found that interesting too. And during the standardization process, they found that partially corrected responses were more consistent with children with a language disorder. So if you are going through the PLS and you're having kids who maybe get 2 out of the 3 correct, and are almost reaching that correct threshold but aren't, that is a good sign that you've got a child with a language impairment.
Okay. What are the PLS-5's basal and ceiling rules?
Okay. Well, the biggest change for me, I think, was the ceiling. Because the ceiling is now 0 out of 6 consecutive items.
That's a big change.
And we're all used to the PLS-4 being 0 out of 5 consecutive items. And I think that when we are when I'm first giving the PLS-5, I'm saying, 5 incorrect, and not going to that 6th one. Well, the reason they have the 6th one in there is because through standardization, they realized that some of the typically developing kids were able to get 4 correct, 4 incorrect, 4 correct. There was a lot of scatter in the upper level of their ability level. And so by extending it out to 6, they have definitely made sure that we are administering the test and getting all of the items that children can actually do.
Okay.
The other what has remained the same is the ceiling. The ceiling is still 3 items in a row. They do let you know, though, that for lower functioning children or for children who are younger, that you may never get a basal. If you start at number 1, it's quite possible that they can only get 1 or 2 correct, and that you don't get that basal. So be mindful of that.
Okay. Can you repeat any test items?
Well, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that does this. I don't think so. But I find that with little ones, when you're trying to elicit the test response, that you're down there and you're saying, okay, and you're repeating things again and again. Give the bear a drink, give the bear a drink, give the bear a drink. And hoping that multiple repetitions will make the child go ahead and do it. But you can only repeat things when it is a practice item. So some items have one practice and then they have the actual stimuli after that. So in a practice item, you can teach the child how to answer it and repeat yourself numerous times. But that's the only place you can do that.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can repeat yourself if you think the child wasn't paying attention. Say you misread the child's cues and they were talking to mommy and you're saying the stimuli. That's really the only other time that you can repeat. On test items 56 and 57 on the expressive communication scale, those are imitation items, so you can never repeat those. And please remember that if you change your cues, the written cues that are in the administration book, if you change the cues, it is quite possible you have broken standardization and you're not going to be able to score the test.
Okay. All right. What about kids with dialects or kids with severe impairments? How would you administer the PLS-5 to those children?
Well, there is a dialect appendix for children who aren't speaking mainstream American English. So you can just pull out that appendix and go through and rate what the child said. They have different columns, and it's quite nice to be able to do that.
Okay.
You can, for special populations, there's 6 special populations that the PLS has some suggested modifications for. Some of those modifications are going to be in line with standardization, and some of them aren't. So you really want to read through. They have modifications for autistic kids and modifications for kids who use sign language, and you want to read through that to make sure that you are adhering to the standardization before you score it.
Okay. Are there any differences in the norms used for the PLS-5?
Yes. We're all used to the PLS being from a 6-month interval. And for the most part, the PLS-5 does stay in that 6-month interval, except for the 6-month interval of 2 years, 6 months to 2 years, 11 months. During that interval, they actually score it month by month. And if you ordered your PLS-5 when it first came out, you would have gotten later a change of norms in the male that you can just put into your examiner manual. I think that it's also on their website, the PLS website. You can also access those updated norms there.
Okay. Tell us about the item analysis checklist.
Well, there's the item analysis checklist, and then there's also in the protocol the PLS-5 profile. So there's two ways you can do this. The item analysis checklist is a chronological checklist from birth to 7 years 11 months in the administration manual that you can go through and check off the ones that the child was able to do. And so you give a good visual on what they were able to do and what they were not able to do based on their age.
Okay.
The PLS profile is a little bit different. This goes through each item and puts it in a category of attention, semantics, language structure, so that you're able to look at each item based on that classification. So it does have some good ways to come up with goals if you're looking for groups of items that the child didn't do well on.
Okay. What is the new, what's new in the supplemental measures?
The supplemental measures have this new home communication questionnaire that you can give to parents of children birthed to 2 years 11 months. It is not norm referenced, so you're not going to be finding a standard score. It's used mainly to make sure that what the parent sees at home is the same as what we are seeing in the evaluation room.
Okay.
And it can be given before or after the assessment.
Okay.
Oh, and then the articulation screener. I forgot, I have 3 different supplemental measures I want to talk about. The articulation screener is here in the record form, and basically there are 14 items that you are going to administer, and you have a the child is going to repeat the sentence, the child is going to repeat the word after you, and there's 23, within those words, there's 23 sounds that you're going to be assessing. The child receives incorrect if they produce a distortion, a substitution, or a deletion. And then at the end, you can take their raw score and their age and figure out, based on the PLS recommendations, whether or not the child needs further evaluation for an articulation disorder. And then we've got the language sample. And this is really nice. It's a very nice checklist because you can now they suggest to tape 5 minutes of the child's speech, and at the end of the 5 minutes you would transcribe it and then go through this checklist, and it gives you items about syntax and morphology and semantics, social language, and also lets you rate speech intelligibility. So it's a really, really helpful way to say, yes, this is what I got, this is the results I got standardized, and then this backs it up based on what you've checked off on this checklist. And so I hope that this information really helps you in the future as you use the PLS-5 more and more in your pediatric practice. We have had a lot of talk as to best ways to implement this, and I think by reading the manual, that was really the key for us. So thank you so much. Have a great day.